And once I see that people are here, I'm going to play the intro reel, and then we'll start things off, and I'll introduce everyone. And I can see people have started to pop in. So here we go. I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium-sized businesses while controlling risk. So if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome. It's Dave Barnett, and I'm here with a few of my friends, people that are members of my Business Buyer Adventure group coaching program. Today, we're doing a little bit of a celebration because the group coaching program is 5 years old this month, and so we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about the group. I'm going to get some of these guys to share some of their experiences. And if you happen to be watching us live and you want to ask some questions, feel more than free to do that. And so I want to kick things off. We've got one person on the line here who has to go pretty quickly. So we're going to start off with Anthony. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Doing well, David. Good to be here.
Anthony, do
And
you want to give us a
congratulations.
quick? Well, thank you very
Congratulations
much. Thank you.
on 5 years.
You want to give us a quick synopsis of your journey as an entrepreneur and what led you to want to learn more about buying businesses and joining the group?
Yeah, absolutely. Originally from the UK, moved to America back in 2015. Been an entrepreneur most of my life. Had my first business when I was 13. Another one that I built when I was 17 that I ran through my university studies, and sold to private equity in my mid 20s, and then moved here to America, joined the corporate world, and I'm in the process of trying to get back to entrepreneurship and business ownership, and bought a small business that I run semi-absentee. Um, and yeah, I came across you, David, because I was watching videos about structuring deals and buying businesses using the SBA, which is a fantastic facility that we in America get to utilize. Very uncommon in Europe to be buying businesses from a 95% leverage position. So yeah, that's how I came across you, and a lot of the content that you produce was very unique. I really appreciated that you don't tend to sell the hype, and I tell people this all the time. A lot of your videos I find to be the cold-hearted truth a lot of the times with business ownership, rather than selling the hype and trying to sell lucrative courses and profits that don't come easy. This is not easy. Owning a business is not easy. Buying a business is even harder. And I just appreciated how transparent you were with all that.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. You've been in the group for coming on a year now, and in that time, I think you've had a couple of negotiations to look at purchasing some other businesses. You want to share a little bit about that, and maybe perhaps some of the things that led to those deals not happening?
Yeah, I'll share a few things. My time in the group has been very beneficial. I've learned a lot about deal structure. I've learned a lot about um, some of the gotchas that I wouldn't have the ability to have known about without getting the experiences of others in the group. Obviously, I've spent some one-on-one time with you, David, which has been very, very useful. You're extremely knowledgeable, and I would say that aside from just having the ability to talk with the group, um, just being around. I mean, this is a lonely existence, running a business, but also searching for a business. It's very lonely. And having a group of people that are either in the process of doing the same thing or have already done this and are midway through their journeys. We have some folks on the group that have several businesses that they're running and operating and doing really well with. And so you get a real mix of expertise and insight that you wouldn't otherwise have. And I think the modest cost of the group is more than paid for itself, just in the fact that probably would have gone through with a few of these transactions, um, without having the advice and mentoring from the group. And so it certainly paid for itself in dividends.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Anthony. What Anthony just said about being part of a group, sort of breaking the isolation is something that I've heard from a couple of people that have been through it. Um, uh, Jordan, you thank you for joining today. You have the distinction of being, I think you're the only member of the group who actually signed up when it was new 5 years ago. So you've been
We've been working 5 years together. That's right.
well, and I think the first time we started talking, I think was even before that, because you were working on your very first deal, and then since joining the group, you've done a couple more, haven't you?
Yeah, it's unbelievable to think in 5 years what you can achieve. And the thought of buying a business was such a foreign concept. I mean, 7 years ago. So I think it's an amazing proposition or opportunity to bet on yourself, but even better to have people that have been down the path before you and bring them in early. And you'll take your lumps along the way, but it's an amazing ride. And I'm grateful to live in this country where we can uh, be entrepreneurial and acquire businesses and run them and grow them.
And all three of you who've joined today, you guys are all in the United States, but there are people in the group that are in Canada. We've had people from there are people in the group today in Australia. We've had people from New Zealand before,
Right.
Singapore, Scotland, and so it is people from all over that are in there. We got a couple of people that are chiming in saying hello. E. Allen says hi everyone, and we've got Kevin who's joining from Lakeland, Florida, who says good afternoon. Good to see you there, Kevin. Um, Roger, your story has been a little bit different because most of the people who join the group are looking for help and guidance to get their first deal done, but you actually came and joined after you had done a few transactions. You want to tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to decide to come and join us?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an engineer by education. I was working in technology, and then I moved into the oil and gas field. I started in a pretty specialized niche that was sort of consistent with my educational and technology background. And, got to where I was managing a pretty decent sized business unit for a large oil field services company, one of the largest in the world. And so I had teams that were local to where I live, but also kind of smattered around the world and various countries. And I got comfortable with the idea of managing significant projects remotely. Some of those were in the Gulf of Mexico, where it wasn't that challenging. It would be easy to get down there and check things out. Others were quite challenging, like Gulf of Thailand, for example. And so you're holding meetings at 1 a.m. local time, et cetera. So I just got comfortable with that process, and ultimately decided I started pursuing real estate investment, but then ultimately happened upon the idea of business acquisition. It has all of the advantageous traits of real estate investing, but probably 10x the financial outcomes, the economic incentives. So I went down that route back in late 2016, early 2017. At the time, there was no, as far as I'm aware, there were no programs or materials. Certainly, as far as I know, you weren't broadcasting back then, and if so, I wasn't aware of it. So I was kind of fumbling around in the dark and just trying to figure things out on my own. And the process was extra painful because I had no guidance I stumbled my way through, bought my first business in June of 2017. Have done several transactions since then. I happened upon your podcast some time ago and ended up, binging all of the episodes and really liking the material quite a lot. And I engaged you for some advice, one-on-one advice for a transaction I was contemplating at the time. Really liked what you had to say. I thought it was really helpful. The transaction wasn't consummated for a number of reasons that we kind of ran into during due diligence. But yeah, I liked all the material and decided to join the group. Um, I really kind of think of it as like a mastermind, and I really enjoy the biweekly calls and getting to hear what everyone is doing and your responses and advice to that. And some of it I already know, maybe a lot of it I already know just through my own experiences, but there's usually something that I didn't know, and that's especially true with the expert calls that you do periodically. I think every expert call that I've listened to, I've gotten at least something out of. And when you're doing a lot of acquisitions, even small additional pieces of information can be a fulcrum to have really substantial financial impacts. And so, the modest cost of the group is negligible compared to the
I keep hearing you guys use the term modest cost, and it makes me wonder if I shouldn't like raise the price or something.
as long as we're grandfathered in.
Yeah. Now, Roger, you use the word mastermind, and thank you, because really a lot of the times some of the most valuable insights come from the discussion between the members.
Yeah.
People
Mhm.
will ask a question or they put something forward that they're having difficulty with, and then other people who've been through it before get to chime in and
Mhm.
share some of their own experience, and it happens almost every call, I think.
Oh yeah. I think it happens every call, and that's I really enjoy that. If for
Yeah.
no other reason, it's just really entertaining, and I don't get to make all of the calls for various reasons. I travel and have other commitments, but I try to make them all. I prioritize it, but when I do miss them, I always go back and listen to the recordings, and I just find it really interesting, just the discussions.
Yeah, and so we get an interesting question here from E. Allen, who says, on the subject of how to decide on an industry, what should be considered when deciding on what industry to pursue: education, work experience, or industry success rate? And I think that each of you here on the call could probably make a slightly different answer to this. Jordan, what? How did you choose the industry that you're in?
Good question. Well, I had the benefit of having some familiarity in interpretation, translation, the language service industry. My mom was an interpreter, so I had that benefit of seeing somebody in this big little industry that's all around us that nobody knows about, and that expanded my thoughts on buying a business of can I stay in the service business lane? So I think there's a couple of things to think about when you are deciding what can I buy, what can I operate, what's the best fit for me. I mean, all the personal demographics, but then also the business demographics. And I think that the easiest one to decide is, do I want service or product route? And that's a good way to really quickly, cut out half of the population. Um, both have different pain points and different challenges. And then from there, I love to explore the NAIC codes in the United States and just look at how they've categorized the entire economy into different buckets and start to look at what's out there and start pairing with what's interesting to you. And I like to challenge people to go niche, like go further in. Don't get stuck on laundromat. Sorry, Anthony, if I'm putting you on the bus, but don't get stuck on the everyday. There's so many businesses that you could niche down even further. So I guess it's more about research and knowing yourself and what you're going to be excited about. Those are my 2 cents.
So that whole family business connection, obviously you had a big insight into that industry, but before, doing your first acquisition, that was really helpful to you. Anthony, when you moved from the UK to Texas, you were kind of open to looking at all sorts of different things, weren't you? What was your process for figuring out what kind of industry you wanted to be in?
Well, mine was a little bit more unique in that first of all, I wanted to find something that I could operate alongside my W-2. So, I was semi-restricted in terms of what I thought I could take on. So I was seeking something that had a manager already in place. Um, I was relatively industry agnostic, and I tend to dislike that word just because I think you can spread yourself really far and wide if you aren't at least somewhat targeted. What was really tying me to what I was looking to acquire was location, and so when I first bought my business, I bought it 10 minutes from my house, so I knew that if there was an issue with the manager, that I could not necessarily step in and run it, but had the capabilities to find somebody relatively quickly. Um, so most people should probably center their search around the location they're in, unless you're single and ready to move across country. But for most of us, I think there's something that's grounding you to a specific location, whether it's family or friends or an existing job. In my case, that meant that I had to be location sensitive.
Okay. And Roger, you own several businesses and they're in different industries. W- Is there any, could you maybe speak to the challenges of having to sort of keep your finger on the pulse of the different categories?
Yeah, yeah. I wish I could say that in the selection of my industries, I was as intentional as Jordan, but that wasn't the case. I just kept looking at a lot of different stuff, and just ultimately found an industry that I thought would work. It was nothing that I was particularly excited about, but I thought it was more excited about the business management opportunity. Um, so today, yeah, we largely operate in three different industries: home health care, medical transportation, and family entertainment centers. By which I mean indoor playgrounds and trampoline parks. Um, for you know, we have a large enough portfolio now that we were able to build kind of like a holding company, and so we have a significant support infrastructure that helps. So I get to kind of operate more at a strategic level generally, and so keeping the finger on the pulse. When you have really good people, that's just a lot easier to do. So we have like a VP of operations for our family entertainment center portfolio, and so I really have very little to do with the day to day. I attend a 30-minute meeting every week, and then he and I meet as needed, and I review financials, usually monthly. It's just really not that much of an impact on my time. I focus most of my time in the home health care sector where we don't have, I functionally am that person. And in our medical transportation side, we have like a president of that division um, that handles those portfolio companies. And it's a kind of a similar arrangement where I attend an hour meeting each week and then review financials, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, small business ownership is um, it's risky, but I personally believe that it's a lot less risky than having a W-2 job where you have a single source of income, and at any time it could be more financially advantageous for your employer to dismiss you than to retain you. And that happens all the time. People get even really good, hardworking people get laid off all the time when just bad stuff happens in the economy or whatever.
And so, Roger, I just want to backtrack a little bit there because you were talking about how you have several businesses and you have some different degrees of management in place in the different categories. But it sounds like you still have, a full job here ahead of you every week of just keeping an eye on your holdings and making decisions and managing things. And I just want to reiterate this because that there's this consistent idea that I keep running into on the internet that if you buy a bunch of businesses that suddenly you can put managers in place and you don't have to work anymore. But I think that you're really demonstrating to people that the more stuff you have, it's just you have to learn to manage more and more. And that means putting people in place, but you still got to keep an eye on the whole apparatus, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we are. I mean, I work as if I treat this as a full-time job. Probably put in 50, 55 hours a week. And, I've got a lot more flexibility with my time. I get to take a lot more vacations, but, I can get up if I want to go walk my dog in the middle of the day or go to the movies or whatever. I can go do that. But yeah, it's still a job. Um, the Now I will say that if I wanted to, I could sell the home health care, I could sell the medical transportation, and just keep the family entertainment center portfolio, and it really probably would mostly run on its own for the most part. So I wouldn't completely dismiss the idea that you can be an absentee owner, but I am not an absentee owner. I am a remote owner, and that is different. Yeah. So no one should buy a business with the simple expectation that they're going to hire a manager or hire an operator or go find someone and then they don't have to do anything. That's very unlikely to be the case. Very unlikely.
I would agree.
Yeah. And one piece of advice I would give people would be, if you're looking for a business, buy the largest business that you can afford because it will be less risky and you will be able to take a more strategic role. If you go and you buy something tiny where you're the sole employee, then you bought yourself a job, and there's not anything inherently wrong with that. It's just be aware that that's what you're doing.
Yeah. I think getting into any deal with your eyes open, I think is the best piece of advice that anyone can get.
I wanted to add on to that, if I may. The opportunity here is rolling up your sleeves and getting into the trenches and understanding the business that you're buying. And even before buying, if you can niche down and find the right industry and read everything you can about it. I mean, you're looking for an edge on how do I operate this the same, if not better than the previous owner. But definitely to start, how do I operate the same? And learn everything I can. And it's just impossible to do that totally, passive or removed. And I especially think if you're a first-time buyer, expect to be in it, all the messes, all the people problems, all the product inventory problems. But as Roger said, you get a lot of opportunity with all the responsibility and flexibility. So if you're the type of person that is self-driven and can handle the ambiguity of figuring things out, then this is a good path for you for sure. But you're looking for the edge. What are the levers that I can pull to make this business even better? And I think that's what makes buying a business even more exciting than real estate. There's only so many levers you can pull in real estate, whereas I think in business you can go so many different directions, and you're only limited by your creativity.
Yeah, I describe it often as having a longer stick to try to leverage a rock or something like that. Cody came and joined us. Cody, you want to introduce yourself? Tell everyone what your path was that led you to the group.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm late to the meeting. I was at another meeting. So my background is what led me to the group is I have a background in investment management going back 25 years now. I can't believe I'm that old. And I was a lot of stock market investments. I was a trader for hedge fund and real estate investments. And I had done a startup by accident about 10 years ago, and it was an e-commerce startup, and it's grown really well. And I was involved in a couple of other e-commerce startups, and they all grew really well. And over time, it became evident, though, that the best route for me is I'm at the warehouse, so some of my team members are walking behind me. So what happened is I began to realize that business acquisitions were some of the best ways to go, because it takes you forever to do a startup. Chances of success are not great. I've been lucky, and it was a combination of luck and skill, really. It took me forever to learn it and figure it all out. So to 10 years and grow all these businesses. So what led me to the group, and I've been part of the group for about 2.5 years, was wanting to really learn how to acquire businesses, what it takes, hear from a group. I was looking for a mastermind group of successful people, and I found it here, and it's been really cool. I've learned a ton and had a lot of insights in the group since I joined. So it's been pretty life-changing for me. And shortly after I joined the group, I bought a business.
Thank you very much, Cody. You mentioned there about success rates in startups. Now that you've got to the place where you have a business and it's functional and it makes money for you and everything, can you look back at your startup experience and kind of point out the moments where there were sort of critical moments that you were kind of maybe a little bit of luck helped you through some of them?
Oh yeah, but every other moment probably. It's there. I shouldn't say it's a lot of luck, but it's definitely a good chunk of luck. I mean, we got involved in Amazon. Amazon for the longest time has been about half of all internet sales in the United States, give or take. And if you're going to do e-commerce, you have to be on Amazon. If you're going to do a physical product, that is. If it's non-physical, it's a different deal. But if you're going to do a physical product, you need to be on Amazon. And and I've come across a lot of e-commerce space. And so Amazon, you just get on there and it just worked. I mean, it just worked. It could have been a big fight, and it could have been expensive and time consuming. I'm in the state of Oklahoma. If I ran let's say a physical retail store selling what we sell, it would not work. There's just not enough people here. But thanks to the internet and thanks to the way Amazon's structured and how it's so big, it was easy to sign up there and you started getting sales immediately. So that was pure luck. That was something I built. I built on something they built. So that was definitely critical points along the way. There's been several more I learned. I mean, I learned how to hire employees and manage them remotely, to Roger's point. Hiring employees and managing them remotely was a huge skill set that I hadn't learned before, and I had to learn, I had to grow. And that was a huge help because I work with people all over the world now, and I didn't have that skill set before. And the cost of labor has gone down dramatically. And in many ways, their quality of their work is even better than what I would have otherwise had access to here. So it's been a huge amount of stuff that I had nothing to do with, that just happened to be built for me. I just plugged into it. I had to learn it. It was a lot of work and it took time. But so I would say in various ways, there was luck along that way. And I had nothing to do with a lot of those systems that were put in place that allowed me to prosper from it. So yeah, there's definitely points along the way that luck. Whereas buying a business that was already set up, everybody in this group everybody here today, for example, has had success with it. I mean, I hate to say it. In a way, that's luck because you didn't do it. You didn't have to build it. But buying it is just such a better, more efficient system. I mean, we've talked about it before in the group that if you buy a business 5 years later, there's at least a 90% chance that business will still be in business. Where if you start a business 5 years later, there's something like 0.25% chance or something, or a 25% chance it'll still be in business 5 years later. So the acquisition route just makes a lot more sense. And also, I want to point this out. If you take a chart of the top 10 billionaires in the world, okay, and there's a thing going around that like 90% of all millionaires made their wealth from real estate. But the top 10 billionaires, all they do is buy companies. There might be one that's a real estate guy. The other 9, I mean, Bill Gates, for example, Bill Gates has bought 250 companies since he's founded Microsoft, okay? This average like 6 or 7 businesses a year, okay? Warren Buffett's bought 134 businesses in his day. I mean, you go down the list, all the wealthiest people. You've got Elon Musk. The guy bought Tesla. People think he started it. He bought it. He bought PayPal. Okay. Actually, he was part of them. PayPal was a merger between his company and another one. So they bought each other. Elon was CEO for 6 months before they fired him at PayPal. Yeah. Okay. And on and on. You got all these guys, LVMH, which is famous for Louis Vuitton and all these famous brands. They own like 64 companies or something like that. And so you go down the list, and business acquisitions are where some of the biggest wealth I've ever seen seems to come from. It's just piles and piles of opportunities there.
I noticed that years ago, just in looking at the business landscape, the big publicly traded companies tend to grow through acquisition. And they usually only start a business when it's driven by some kind of new technology, like when cell phones were first, invented. Yeah, they had this, people, a lot of the phone companies started cell phone companies, for example. And when you think about a large publicly traded company, you've got those C-suite executives and you have board of directors, and they have this responsibility to the shareholders to take care of the money and to act responsibly with it. And when I think about an individual person and their own money, if you're trying to do something with your money, it if you're going to have the same sort of fiduciary responsibility to your own assets as these publicly traded company executives would have to their shareholders, then this is really something you have to consider, because to put your money into something that already has a track record of success just makes a lot more sense than trying something new, you know. And I've just met so many people over the years who've had issues with startups, and 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 especially someone who is trying to create a completely new and different kind of business that's never seen before. That is probably another order of magnitude even more difficult than opening the kind of business that people expect, already know what it is, kind of thing.
Definitely. Well, David, you even made it in one of your books. One of your books I read, it was the one about how better than a startup, I think was the name of it.
Oh,
Where
Smarter Than a Startup,
yeah,
available on Amazon.
yeah, that's it. Well, that was a great point, because it's like, if I have a startup idea, why don't I go buy a business that would then add that startup to that business that's already successful, and that idea works really well. I mean, I've been involved in startups multiple times, not just for myself but my family. We've got a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, and most of them are startup people, and it's not an easy life compared to an acquisition. If you buy bigger, like Roger's point, if you buy bigger, it's a different game. It changes, your life changes completely compared to stuff I've done, quite frankly. So,
Well, the I guess the idea or the thoughts that I articulated in that particular book was based on looking at big companies and what they do. So I read an article somewhere that Procter and Gamble like creates and launches several dozen new products every year, and most of them fail, right? And I was just realizing that's their startup initiative. Like they're trying to create the next big hit that's going to be a big thing for them, but because they have this whole catalog of very successful products that make money for them, they can afford that kind of iterative innovation within their company, knowing that they're going to have the same kind of failure rate as any startup, but it's not going to take down the whole thing, right? And there's no reason why small businesses can't do that. I've seen people buy like machine shops and things like this because they had this idea to create a certain product. Well, if you buy a machine shop that can make your product and then it's already got an established business and cash flow, all of a sudden you've de-risked that entire new product idea.
it's exactly right. It's a way better way to go. Exactly right. And if you
Yeah.
can, yeah, definitely. You got to know what you're doing, though.
Oh, well, exactly. Would anyone here like to comment on getting into a business, without really knowing it thoroughly? Anthony, probably your experience is probably the closest, because the business you bought was very dissimilar from everything you've done in your past. What was the learning curve like for you?
It was rough. It was rough. Um, Definitely went into it a little naively, and
Oh, I think he's stuck.
Leaving us hanging. He was about to share some gems.
Well, that's the internet. All right.
Well, David, I wouldn't mind jumping in here. I think this speaks to the point that this is one of the reasons why I think it's important to buy a little bit larger. I see the idea all the time that if you're going to buy a business, let's go buy something that for 250K or 300K because it's less risky. Well, a business that is selling for 300K is not going to have professional management staff in place, whereas something that's 3 million, 4 million is likely to have that, and that will allow you the the breathing space to actually learn the business, because the business will be able to continue to operate. The wheels aren't going to fall off without you jumping in and doing everything yourself. So that's, if you're buying something for 300K, the likelihood is that most of the institutional knowledge of that organization walks out the door when the seller leaves after the transition period. So these are the kinds of things that they're counterintuitive, but when you have like a mastermind group or a group of people that are talking about this stuff like this comes up, and then you get to hear both sides of the story. And yeah, that's just sort of an extension.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you. For those smaller size companies, you already want to be very knowledgeable about the industry before you get into it. It's the people who I've seen do really great successes with those are people who've had a career somewhere else in that very same industry, and they're already experts. They just
Right.
need that existing cash flow base that they can jump into and then work the magic that they already know.
Yep.
Yeah, you were talking about de-risking a deal, and you do that with knowledge and experience. So if you're short on either of those, there's you bolster by working with somebody like David, or joining Mastermind, or going deep on your own research online. And not to add to the AI hype, but I figured I'd be the one to bring it up. Is I've been using some of this open AI as a better way to research and understand industries, asking about trends and revenue cycles and how sticky are customers. So there's so much research, industry associations, consultants that are specialized in one industry, and paying for that person's time, an hour or whatever it is, to take notes and bolster your knowledge until you can get experience, borrow from somebody else's. That's how you de-risk these deals. In addition to making sure you've got your spreadsheets and your tight controls on cash flow. And then the other piece is people, right? Is learning how to work with people and deal with hard stuff and hold them accountable, inspire them. So these are the, I think, core areas of de-risking a deal: is people, knowledge, and experience, and then making sure the cash, you're not going to be in a crunch there.
Yeah, great points, Jordan. We've been on here for almost 40 minutes, and I know I promised you guys I wouldn't keep you on much longer than this, but I just want to remind everyone who's tuned in that if you're curious about learning more about the group coaching program, it is part of the overall Business Buyer Advantage system. If you go to businessbuyeradvantage.com, there's a short video there where I talk about all the different steps of how I help people buy a business. And this group coaching program is one of those steps that people do after the online training program. And if you go, businessbuyeradventure.com will take you straight through to the page that shows you the different sign up features and everything for the program. Businessbuyeradventure.com. And I honestly couldn't believe it when I realized this was coming up on the 5th year anniversary. If anyone remembers Yat Long from the live streams a couple of years ago, I actually went out and had lunch with her and her husband, and she's the one that brought it up and said, "Oh, you're heading towards your 5th anniversary." And I was like, "Holy cow!" But it's true. And as Roger was mentioning earlier, in addition to the group calls that we do every month I have what's called an expert guest call. And it's a person that I bring in who either talks about something to do with deal making or something to do with operations. And whenever somebody joins the group, of course, the whole back catalog of recordings, all the expert calls back to the first month and all the adventure calls going back over time are all in there. And I know that most people, when they sign on, they start to attend the live meetings and everything, but most people go back and they start to listen to all those calls because, of course, you get to just sort of listen in as people deal with all these different scenarios, different industries, different business types, different, we had a new one the other day with one of our Australian members talking about a landlord who is in an extreme position of leverage, and just looking for ideas of what he could do to negotiate with this landlord. And sometimes there are no answers. There's no good answers, just do 1, 2, 3 and you'll get out of trouble kind of thing. But it's really great to have a field of people that you can bounce a question off of and get all kinds of different pieces of advice based on everyone's different experience. So yeah. So to everyone who joined me here today, thank you very much. Roger, Jordan, Anthony, and Cody, thank you very much for taking time out of your days to come and share with everyone who tuned in, and to help me, promote the program. Um, we'll have to see about maybe adjusting the pricing. Of course, that's what I keep hearing from you guys, that it's the price is too low. I think that's what modestly means. But maybe we'll leave things unchanged for a little while and let some new people sign on if they're lucky enough to act fast.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, congratulations. 5 years impacted a lot of people. I know myself personally wouldn't be on the trajectory that I am. So very grateful for this group and David for your mentorship over these 6+ years.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I'm having an impact like this for everyone. Yeah.
Thanks, David, for everything you do.
All right. And I'll see you guys later on today, because we have one of our calls later on this afternoon. So we'll see you all, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. So again, like I said earlier, if you want to learn more about all the different ways that I help people buy businesses, just head over to businessbuyeradvantage.com, and you can see the whole program. And then I mentioned there the group coaching part, and you can get there directly by going to businessbuyeradventure.com. And with that, thanks for all of you who joined me live. I see all your messages coming through in here. It's great to see everyone, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.